Here you've got the Son of God who is subject to his physical parents. As a matter of fact, Luke does go into quite a bit of detail, although it's very short, concerning Christ's growing up as a young child. And as Katrina explained, Matthew sort of covers the first 4 or 5 years, let's say, of Christ, but Luke goes much further and covers, with just a couple of examples, the rest of that period before his ministry. In other words, from about 5 years old to about 30 years old. 2:52 in Luke, it says, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." Now, once again, we're reading this here in English, but in the Greek, we look at the term stature here, G2244, from the same as 2245. And we can see here it is maturity in years. So this is the budding of the child Jesus and the reaching out and becoming more and more mature as he gets older. The idea here, of course, would be to go ahead and look at the meaning of all these words, but I think that's sufficient to get the idea of what's taking place here with Christ growing up. So he's developing into a very interesting young adolescent and then young man. And we have an example of this in Luke 2, verse 49. "And he said unto them," now this is when he's in the temple questioning and answering the questions of the Pharisees, and his parents leave without him. And then they come back to find him in the temple with these religious leaders, which is quite an amazing story, indicating his closeness to God, doing the work, indicating his maturity, even at that time prior to him starting his ministry. And in verse 49, "And he said to them," in other words, Jesus said to his parents, "How is it that you sought me? Wist you," in other words, "didn't you know that I must be about my Father's business?" And that's exactly what he was doing. He was preaching and he was teaching. "And they understood not the saying which he spoke to them." They didn't get it yet. They didn't understand. "And he went down," in other words, Jesus went down with them, with his parents, and came to Nazareth, pronouncing it in Hebrew here, was subject unto them. Now, notice this. Here you've got the Son of God who is subject to his physical parents. He was subject to them, and yet here he's subject in obedience to his parents. It's really quite an incredible story here and quite an incredible example.
Uncover the mystery of Adam and Eve's nakedness. Unravel the ambiguous connection between the Hebrew term for naked and the serpent's subtlety. Join us for this free mini-course and gain a profound new perspective on biblical Hebrew. TheExplanation.com/naked